This latest offensive underscores questions around succession. Those questions first emerged over the weekend after Iran's supreme leader was killed. Sahar Razavi joins us now to talk about that. She is an associate professor of political science at Cal State University Sacramento, and she's the director of its Iranian and Middle Eastern Studies Center. Sahar, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So this is really only the second time a supreme leader has to be replaced since 1979. How does it typically unfold?
According to the Iranian constitution, there are provisions for the succession in the event of the death of the supreme leader. The protocols stipulate that there is a temporary committee that would take charge of administering the country during this transitional period until the supreme leader is named, who is succeeding Khamenei. That committee is comprised of three people: the current president of Iran, the head of the judiciary, and one member of the Assembly of Experts, who is it's a body of 88 clerics that have a great degree of control over the interpretation of laws and how governing affairs are conducted in Iran.
But this, the objective of the U.S. and Israel is for, I assume, there not to be a supreme leader of this kind in charge of running Iran in the future, right?
I think that the United States has been very clear that what they want is a total regime change in Iran. That does not necessarily mean that there would be no supreme leader at all. We really don't, as you just, the segment prior just clearly said, Trump is not exactly very clear sometimes on what he is asking for or what he wants. I think it's possible that a supreme leader in name only is put in place if the United States has any kind of influence over this process. It's also possible that there won't be a supreme leader at all, as you say. Technically, the Iranian constitution also allows for a committee of leadership rather than a supreme leader in perpetuity. So it remains to be seen what they choose at this point.
President Trump spoke a little earlier about the transition. I just want to play a bit of what he said and then ask you about it.
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody.
What do you make of that assessment that those that the U.S. had in mind to lead Iran could all be dead?
I am taking these statements with a grain of salt at this point. I think it's possible that he's speaking off the cuff and is telling the truth. I think it's also possible that this is rhetorical framing in order to be able to put someone in that perhaps a majority of Iranians do not support, but they are being primed to believe that there are no alternatives left, and so they would be willing to accept whoever the United States puts in place. So I am considering different possible interpretations that could all be valid at this point, but it does not bode well, I would say.
It does not bode well because what many Iranians would like is for this to be something that is decided by them, right?
That's right. According to the most reliable public opinion data that we have, a majority of Iranians want a secular democracy, and they want religion and state to be separated. And although it is true, certainly, that a majority of Iranians are either relieved or happy that the supreme leader is gone, that does not translate necessarily into uniform support for how he was eliminated. Many Iranians have expressed to me from both inside and outside of Iran that this was not justice for them. For them, justice would have been accountability, where he would have had to face the families of his victims, rather than in the perspective of him and his supporters being a martyr in the cause of justice, standing up against U.S. imperialism and Zionist aggression. So there are mixed feelings here, but many Iranians are certainly in favor of Iranians themselves deciding what happens to Iran.
Do you think that Trump supports the idea of Iranians choosing themselves some form of secular democracy? And how much does that matter? Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think when we look at the history of U.S. involvement in the region, a clear pattern emerges that the will of the people is much less important to the United States than U.S. foreign policy objectives in the region. And so to the extent that Iranian people's interests and U.S. foreign policy interests may converge, then he may pay lip service to what people want. But I don't think that there's any evidence that Donald Trump himself or his administration are primarily concerned with giving space for Iranians to decide what is best for themselves.
So with that frame in mind, are you hopeful that Iranians will, in fact, be the ones to be able to choose the form of secular democracy, of representation that they want, regardless of what the Trump administration wants?
To be honest, I am not seeing a lot of good paths to that objective in the midst of war. I think foreign powers do not typically spend the resources to get involved in military engagement or direct confrontation like this unless they feel that it's going to be ultimately in their interest, both politically and financially. So to me, it's difficult to see how Iran could emerge from this as a meaningfully democratic system if it is happening at the end of the barrel of a gun, so to speak. There are several options that are possible. One of them certainly is a democracy, but there are other possibilities that right now I see clearer paths to, including the IRGC taking over and Iran becoming a military dictatorship, or some kind of a compromise that allows the Islamic Republic to retain its structure in name while being sort of hollowed out and making very deep concessions to U.S. and Israeli foreign policy interests. Or there could be a complete regime collapse and an implosion of the system, which would possibly create a power vacuum, and that would open up really, really deep vulnerabilities for either foreign occupation or a loss of territorial integrity. There are a lot of different possibilities, and certainly democracy is one of them, but it's difficult to see a clear path to that at this point. That could change, of course.
Sahar, thank you. Sahar Razavi of Cal State University in Sacramento.